hate's a much stronger word than I actually mean, but apparently people don't click on YouTube videos when you say I strongly dislike. And that more accurately describes my feelings on the episode I'm about to talk about. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter, but from a writing and story construction standpoint, it really pops out as poor writing. The episode in question is from season 2 of Degrassi Next Generation, Relax. You know, where Liberty was at her most unbearable, even worse than her pining for JT about the time. Although I gotta say, massive props for having the guts to wear a Napoleon cape. In school, no less. Now the whole idea for this plot of the episode is that Joey can only sponsor one Degrassi sports team, not multiple ones. Hence the whole reason for the boys versus girls floor hockey match. But then at the end of the episode, Joey decides he can sponsor both teams? For one, that doesn't really make sense. I mean, assuming that Joey can only sponsor one team in the first place because of financial things, well, where did he suddenly get the funds to be able to sponsor the girls team just because they did a good job in their match? I mean, maybe he was dipping into funds that he really shouldn't have been, just because he was so inspired, which I would not be surprised that Joey would do such a thing. He's not exactly the sharpest mind on Degrassi, but even for Joey, this seems a little bit out of character, especially given the person who he was at the time of season 2. He had grown up significantly and become more responsible. Not to mention, he had 2 kids to take care of, not just himself. But the reason why this is such an egregious offense in my mind is because they took away the one stake of the whole plotline. Even if it wasn't intended, putting in this obstacle for the girls' floor hockey team to get proper uniforms and then removing it just so we can have a happy ending at the end of the episode, it makes you think, well, what was the point of all that? Why did we have to go through Liberty being insufferable and watch our heroines get their butts kicked at their own game if things were always going to work out anyways? And even more so, it feels un-Degrassi. This is something I'd expect in a typical kids show where everything nicely wraps up at the end. But in Degrassi, things don't always go that way, especially in situations like these where a character is meant to learn from their mistakes. And even though they never follow up with Liberty on this, Joey sponsoring the girls team and the boys team can be taken as, well, if Liberty didn't coach the girls team the way she did, then Joey would have never been impressed with them. It's one thing for Liberty to have to see the error in her ways, but it's another thing to basically be rewarded for doing bad. And she was pretty horrible to the girls. I mean, she was trying to tell Manny to play through her injury. And yeah, I'll admit, this is a pretty minuscule problem in comparison to some of the other things that the show has done, but it in particular stands out because Degrassi just doesn't do this. It's such a hand wave for the one stake that this plotline had, and it also feels disingenuous to reality. Sure, things can work out sometimes, but oftentimes the noble ones don't get rewarded. And you can't even say, well, it was a kid's show, it was appealing to a different audience. Sure, their target demographic was a little younger, considering that some of the characters were middle schoolers at the time, but in a season that saw fit to deal with rape, child abuse, and then later the death of a parent, I don't think you could call this a kid's show in the way that something like this should happen all the time. Again, this is a bit of a nitpick, but that fact alone does not make this point any less valid. Thank you very much for consuming this video, and if you want to send me fan art that you might have drawn, talk to me about Degrassi, Steven Universe, musicals, just about anything, feel free to hit me up on Twitter. You can find me at NotAVampyre, and like with YouTube comments, I'll respond if I've got something to say, just might take me a little while. Thank you very much again, and until next time.